What's going on, guys? Spence back here again, another video. Now, it's not too long after my half marathon time trial, which I'll throw the Strava details somewhere up on the screen here. And obviously, I mentioned that I will have my new racing flats pretty pegged in after the half marathon time trial. I talked about it in the video that was on May 23rd. And today is May 26th when I'm recording this. So I'm going to keep this about as concise as I can and give you my final thoughts on the Saucony Endorphin Pro. So I guess you could say you can consider this a review. But regardless, my final thoughts slash review of the Saucony Endorphin Pro. So I touched on a lot of the details, a lot of the tech specs and whatnot, but this video is going to be more or less about my experience with the shoe. Now, you notice I also have the Stride power meter on the shoe as well, as I did use that to help throughout the time trial and give me pretty much a direct point of reference to the same distance that I raced about 9 weeks ago. Actually, no, it might be 12, something like that, 9 to 12 weeks ago, when I raced down in Tampa for the Gasparilla half marathon. And in that half marathon, I used the Nike Next Percents. And in this time trial half marathon, obviously using the Saucony Endorphin Pro. Now, a couple of things to note. When I said this shoe was firmer, I did mean it, and I stand by that 100%. But this shoe does break in a little bit once you get going with it. So again, I'm only comparing this to the Nike Next Percent and the Nike 4%, as those are the only 3 flats that I've had in my post-collegiate career. And again, another disclaimer, bought these shoes with my own money. Saucony is not paying me to say this. Saucony will not see this before you guys, my subscribers. And again, comparisons only to the 4% and the Next Percent. But same drop again as the Nike Next Percent. 35.27 is what we're looking at. You got a very light spike-like upper, like I talked about in the last video. Very similar to the Saucony Endorphin Pro long-distance track spike. You got the gusseted tongue, and the whole looks. It's a really good shoe. And when I said I stand by what I said with how firm of a ride it has, it's 100% true. The ride is not the Nike Next Percent ride. If you've run in a shoe like the Nike Zoom Fly 3, or even this one, the Nike Zoom Fly Flyknit, it feels very similar, because the shoe, at least the Nike Zoom Fly series to me, is a bit firmer of a shoe, and it's got a very similar weight to it. So I really enjoy how quick and how fast you roll off in the Zoom Fly if you hit that midfoot. And I mentioned also that this has a wider base than the Next Percent through the midfoot, and that's a huge deal to stability, because for me, I'm coming down like this, so I roll in, and coming down and trying to minimize that roll in before I toe off just saves energy. And in a time trial situation, that's what I'm looking at. Now, if you directly look at the stride numbers compared from Tampa to today, May 26th, from about February 25th or so, something like that. The numbers for today: 266 watts, 70-17 for runtime, and obviously half marathon distance. Where Tampa was 275 with a 70-25 runtime. So very glaringly similar times. Temperature in Tampa was about 20 degrees cooler. Very similar start times, and it was, according to Strava, it was 50 degrees with 92% humidity in Tampa. And according to Strava today, the temperature was 66 with 94% humidity. So I'm looking at all things considered, especially like with energy savings, as when you talk about high level racing, especially in a carbon fiber plated shoe, a racing shoe specifically, like with Brooks having one that I haven't tried out yet, Saucony obviously having theirs, which I have with me having worn Nike for the past about year or so now, year plus, because I ended my college career in a pair of Nike 4% that I have sitting in my car, and I still treasure those shoes dearly because those were the shoes that I first broke 32 for 10,000 meters in. So there's that. And then obviously 2 pairs of the Nike Next Percent, so I feel like I have that shoe pretty dialed in. And another point that I said that might have raised some eyebrows in the last video is that the Saucony Endorphin Pro is a little bit better than the Nike Next Percent. And again, I'm gonna stand by it 100%. I mean, like, to me, the data does not lie. When my average power output is 9 watts less than technically my last race in a time trial setting, and I ran a little bit faster. Obviously, there's a variety of factors that can contribute. High mileage training, consistent training, being injury free, just staying on top of everything, hydrating well, sleep, that whole stuff. Doing the little things, that has something to do with it, yes. Reaching 115 miles for my peak mileage total, which was also a new personal best in miles, and I want to say I only did 1 double that week. So just high mileage, consistency, and also kind of changing the structure of my marathon paced workouts. We used to do marathon, like straight marathon tempos, and then some sort of threshold intervals on Friday or a threshold run. We changed that up, and we changed the marathon tempos to marathon fartleks, and then we still did threshold on Friday, but we structured it a lot differently. It was more continuous because we were getting ready at the time for a marathon. So all that being considered, like I think like my whole block was a huge win, and especially having flats that are really solid, and especially for the price point of a carbon plated shoe at only $200 US. That's kind of right on the low end, because you have Skechers that's 180, and they have that wishbone technology, I think it's called, something like that. And with this, you have a full-length carbon fiber S-shaped plate, and like you can see the geometry just looking at the shoe when you stand it straight up. You can see the geometry of that carbon plate. Having a full-length carbon plate in a shoe that is noticeably cheaper and is way better at cornering than the Nike Next Percent and even the Nike Alpha Fly, I think you win with this shoe. It's a very solid price point, like I said, on the low end of the carbon fiber plated racing flat budget for all the shoes. It's very close to the Hoka Carbon X in price point, and even the Carbon Rocket, which both those shoes share a very similar technology to the Saucony Endorphin Pro. So those might be more direct comparisons, but again, I can only compare it to the Nike 4% and the Nike Next Percent because that's what I've run in for well over the past year, and I give these my stamp of approval. And if you want me to tell you where these shoes work best, the quickest I would go, and this is being conservative because I'm going to try these maybe 10K road or 10K track for either a race or possibly a time trial. I don't know what the future holds, so it's just kind of a wait and see there. But I would love to get on the track and run a 10K in these and just kind of see how they go. But as it stands right now, the quickest I'd take these shoes for sure is a half marathon, and these are perfect for the marathon. Jared Ward mentioned it when he talked about it. The shoe keeps you almost in a half marathon type of cadence and rhythm, and he's pretty spot on with that, as he was one of the main guys who helped develop this shoe. As one of the prototypes that he tried in the BYU lab was a very similar version, and they just kept making smaller tweaks to make it lighter and lighter, and that's where they brought in that spike-like upper. And then obviously everything in the midsole was kept the same. Carbon rubber on the bottom, like I mentioned in my last Saucony Endorphin video, it's phenomenal. I only have 25 miles on these shoes, but it looks like I've only run like 10 miles in the shoe, like as a whole. Everything is holding up spectacularly, and that's the other thing I was looking for in a racing flat, because the Hyperion Elite, not super durable. Brooks even said it themselves. The Nike Next Percent, durable to a degree, but once you wear on this part back here, it's kind of game over. And that's kind of when I started to have my Achilles problems with the Nike Next Percents, and the blistering and the cutting, and just like straight sore Achilles, because I'm probably firing too much of one muscle, and that whole thing. It's hard to describe, and I don't want to like put it in full detail, because my kinetic chain, like my biomechanics, are way different than, you know, my friend Phil's or my friend Nick's or even Treyas's, or I mean shit, like even Clayton Murphy or my friends Andre and Austin and Oliver. Andre, Austin, Oliver, who helped me with this time trial, and even Noah, who was part of the initial group. Like, they all played like a big role in just like helping me like get to the point that I was able to run this time trial in, so I could not only deliver myself a PR, but be able to deliver, you know, my thoughts and kind of confirm what I believe about the shoe to be true. And everything that I said in the last video I feel to be 100% accurate. It does reward a midfoot strike, and I mean, for me, like, the science shows it. So that's what I have on the Saucony Endorphin Pro. I would say this is a huge win, and the price point, if you're looking for an alternate to, you know, the Nike Alpha Fly or the Nike Next Percent, this is your shoe. Like I don't think I've run in a shoe this good since the Nike 4% dropped towards the end of my junior year of college, and I only used it my senior year because I still had it. So, and I also used it on the roads as well, outside of college racing. But this is the best shoe since the Nike 4%. I will not even front with you guys. That is 100% what I feel to be true, and I would highly, highly recommend a pair of the Saucony Endorphin Pro. Again, carbon plated racing shoe, and obviously I'm going to use it for racing, because for the next probably month or so I'm just going to take it easy and do easy running until I'm ready to build up again in mid to late June, getting into July. But that'll do it for this video. I want to thank you so much for watching. Links to Science and Sport, my podcast, which is called Unattached, which I host with Trey Sriram and Tyler Bowman. That's down below in the description, as well as a link to Shakeout Apparel, which is an Ohio-based company that makes tri-blend running apparel that's top of the line. I wore one of their shirts in my last video. It was the Akron Half Marathon shirt that I had on, and I stand by their products. They're fantastic. Again, Science and Sport, my gels, which I used for this half marathon time trial, link down below in the description. And my podcast called Unattached. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your major podcast fix, you can find us there. And my Strava will also be down below in the description if you wanted to check out my time trial. And I'm also going to link the Stride activity down below in the description, so you can take a look at the metrics that Shreyas and I are going to talk about a little bit more on the podcast this coming episode. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in another video. Deuces, y'all.